Hello, and welcome to a new week, Introduction to Sociology students. Nice to see you again. Today we're going to talk about a controversial subject in life and sociology. So don't tell anybody that this week we're talking about deviance. Okay? That is behavior, actions that break rules and norms in society. This is an area that we really enjoy studying in sociology because what society's rules and norms are and what happens to people who break them and the number of people who actually break them, the number of people who go along with them, and how we craft these great societal norms is a fascinating part of what makes society and people tick. So that'll be our subject for the week. And we're going to try to talk about it in very tangible terms using examples. A lot of the terms that you hear are covered in your book, so hopefully you've read that already. And the first example of societal norms that we have are things called folkways. Folkways are kind of day-to-day expected interactions that we have or things that we do in society. For instance, if I were meeting one of you for the first time in person, likely I would be expected to say hello, maybe even to shake your hand. And if I refused to say hello, or if I met you and I said goodbye instead, or didn't shake your hand, I would be breaking a folkway because the folkway is actually saying hello and shaking your hand. But these are the very interactions that we usually don't even think about. We just do them almost naturally. That's how ingrained they are in us, by society around us. Now, those aren't the only expectations that society has. Those are the expectations society has for the everyday events that happen. On the other hand, we also have a word that describes the things that we expect in terms of norms at a very large level. So folkways are the day-to-day interactions. And up here, we have some rules or some norms for society that are sort of the major and important things that people are supposed to do to be a part of society. And if they break them, if they break the really big rules and norms, that's called breaking a taboo. And we have a lot of behaviors, even a lot of choices that we make about dress, about how we look, that are big enough, monumental even in societal terms, that if we were to refuse to do them, we would be considered breaking a taboo. And so what we're going to talk about a little today is the difference between these more minor folkways and these major taboos, and a little bit about what they may or may not say about society as well. So I'm going to give you a few different examples of this. Maybe we'll start with dress, because I think that is one that people really understand, because it's something that we all do every day. We often know a lot about what is fashionable, what is not. And certainly, if we try to be fashionable, that's sort of following a folkway, following, traditions of our society. And of course, dress is very different from society to society. Maybe one of the best examples is the tradition that we have in the United States about dress and weddings. If you go to a traditional wedding in many parts of the United States, not all because we're a very diverse country with a lot of different beliefs, but we see an awful lot of brides wearing white. And if a woman were to go to a traditional wedding where she knew that the bride was wearing white, there's probably one thing that she would not wear. What is it? It's white. So as not to compete with the bride, not to be mistaken for the bride. And that's a folkway that we have, that at a traditional wedding, generally female guests would not also wear white. That color is reserved for the bride. Now, if a woman were to show up who is not the bride wearing white, she would be breaking a folkway. Okay, she would be breaking one of those minor rules of social interactions. I suspect that if she did that and she were friends with the bride maybe would be a little upset with her for stealing the spotlight. Maybe the family would be a little upset. But eventually they would get over it probably and be friends again, and it would all work out. You know, that's generally what happens when you break a folkway. Everybody gets over it. On the other hand, let's talk about breaking a taboo as far as dress goes. And that would be if you went out into the street tomorrow, please don't try this at home, wearing nothing. Okay? You're probably laughing right now because it's such a silly thought. Well, not only does it seem silly to us, but it really is also the breaking of a societal taboo. You know, if you were to go over to downtown Miami and just take a stroll wearing absolutely nothing, not only would people perceive you as breaking a taboo, some might shield their eyes, some might laugh, some might call the police, but your behavior, it would also be criminalized, has also been criminalized. It's against the law in most places in the United States to just walk down the street naked. And if you don't believe me, Google San Francisco. They've been having a little fight lately, legal fight and city fight about whether or not public nudity should be legal there. Of course, in most parts of the United States, it's not. It's considered taboo to walk naked down the street, and it's considered deviant behavior, and you might have a criminal record as a result of it. So that's a big difference between breaking a taboo and breaking a folkway. And we know, of course, I'm just talking about the United States right now, but if we were to look country to country, if we were to look globally all across the world, we would see how very much these folkways and even taboos to some extent differ from country to country. For example, while many brides might wear white in the United States, in some parts of the world, red is the traditional color for a bride. And people would look very funny if the bride walked into the wedding in white. In the same way that there are some places across the world, beaches and things like that, where they're nude beaches and it's legal to be nude on them, and if you walked onto them with clothing, people might look at you kind of funny, as if you had broken a taboo for wearing clothes. So all of this is very societally and culturally specific. Give you a few more examples. Here's a changing folkway and changing taboo, and that is tattoos. I'm sure that many of you that I'm speaking to right now have tattoos somewhere. And one of the things that we've seen is we've seen tattoos becoming very mainstream. Once, just a few decades ago, only men got tattoos, and often it was pretty much men who were serving in the armed forces and things like that. It was kind of a mark that you had been in the Army or Navy. And now it's become a very day-to-day thing, and it's also become a tradition of sorts for young people of both sexes. It's pretty much equally acceptable for men and women to get tattoos, although you'll notice that we do have divisions by sex. We think that some areas of the body are more acceptable for men, some are more acceptable and more common for women as well. So in terms of what this means for folkways and taboos, we have some unwritten rules still with tattoos. For example, some tattoos are more accepted, more benign than others. Women very often get tattoos on their ankle. It's considered kind of a feminine place to get a tattoo. Then you might be breaking a folkway in some parts of the country, in some societies, if you got a full sleeve tattoo, if you got a tattoo from shoulder all the way down. Okay? So anytime you wore a t-shirt, you would see all of that. In some parts of America, that would be considered a lot of tattoo. In other parts,